I think that what's important in life is that we develop our creative side. To be creative. Not only creative in having creative products, but being creative in the way we look at the world. Because creativity is more than just creating, let's say, a work of art, like a painting or something, or a um, a um, a symphony, or some particular piece of music that you want to play on a guitar. It's more than that. It's the way you look at life. I like what Maslow did when he was studying that and talking about that, because what he wanted to know about creative people wasn't so much about their products, but about the process, the very process of being creative, of really looking at things in different ways. Looking at life and saying, some people have a very a creative approach to life. They can deal with very difficult situations that other people would devastate most people. But they have a very creative, and that's a good way to put it, a very creative way of looking at things. They are very good at dealing with things, and sometimes it can be very good in counseling people. You think about people who are depressed, or people who might even be thinking about suicide. Sometimes when you just can't think of anything to say, a creative person might come around and present a point of view or a way of looking at life that could be a whole new thing, that can open up a whole new world for somebody, where all of a sudden where they thought everything was just, it was all over and the world is just crashing down on me and I can't deal with it. Someone can present them with a way of looking at life that just turns it around. Now, I've had that happen in my life, where I was looking at my life one way, and then I'm presented with a different way of looking at things. It just totally changed everything for me. And that's the result of creativity. Someone came up with a very creative way of looking at things, a creative way of presenting things, a creative way in which you can deal with problems. To me, that's what I think that people are always striving for. I think a lot of times people look to religion, or they look toward science as a way of solving their problems, of coming up with they expect an answer coming from either from God coming down from the sky and fixing the problems, or from science coming up with a new way in which things can be different. And they never think that there are other ways. By using their imagination. Many times I've used my imagination to help me solve problems. For example, when I was going through anxiety attacks, I used to suffer from really bad anxiety attacks. I've said this before, where I couldn't even go 2 blocks away from home. But I started thinking about things slowly and looking at it and using my imagination. And on my own, I actually came up with different ways of thinking about things to help me to overcome the problem. That's why I think of creativity as being a very important area in life. To have a creative mind, to be open to new ways of looking at things and new ideals. That's why I'm not so quick to judge people as being crazy if they have a way of looking at something that's different from what I'm accustomed to. I look at it, I examine it, I apply critical thinking to it. People can come up with new ways of doing something that aren't worth doing, or sometimes it could even be dangerous. But if you really use your mind, you can tell the difference. You can think about things and come up with better ways of doing things. Develop your creative side, and sometimes through the different arts you can do that. I think that people who are creative generally, one thing that Maslow said is the people that he studied, the self-actualizing people, the people at the top, the one characteristic that all had was that they were all very creative people. And they may not have been artists. He used a list of some people, even famous people, like Abraham Lincoln, for example, or Einstein, and others that he uses as examples. They were all very creative people. And so creativity and mental health, I think, go together. And of course, there are some creative people who are crazy, too. As he even pointed out in his book, some people, can be very creative, but they got issues. Like people like Wagner, for example. There are people who, creativity, though, is important. That's one thing, the main point I want to get to. That it's a good thing to develop creativity. And that's all I want to say about that.